Have you ever felt it? That hollow ache in the dead of night, the one that whispers that something is profoundly, irrevocably wrong. You search for solace, for a flicker of warmth in another's eyes, only to find the same shadows staring back. We call it love, this desperate dance towards a flame that promises light, but so often leaves us scorched. Why does this pursuit, lauded in songs and stories, become a recurring source of our deepest anguish? You believe you choose, you believe you learn, but the pattern, like a ghost in the machine, reasserts itself. You've searched for answers in fleeting pleasures, in the reassurances of a world that profits from your confusion. But the truth, the stark, unyielding truth, has been waiting in the shadowed corners of philosophy, biding its time. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear will not comfort you with easy lies. It will, however, illuminate the chains you never realized you were wearing, the cycle of pain you are trapped in. It has a name and a cruel, unyielding logic. And understanding it is the first terrifying step towards something else, or perhaps just the grim acceptance of its eternal return. Arthur Schopenhauer. The name itself seems to carry the weight of 1,000 rainy afternoons. Born in Danzig in 1788, he walked a world teetering on the edge of revolutionary fervor and romantic idealism, yet his eyes saw something far older, far more primal, lurking beneath the surface. He wasn't a philosopher of sunlit uplands and easy answers. No, Schopenhauer was a cartographer of sorrow, a poet of pessimism. He dared to look into the abyss when others flinched, and what he saw was not a benevolent God or an ordered cosmos, but a blind, insatiable force, a relentless striving he called the will to live. Imagine this will, not as a conscious desire, but as a raw, unthinking energy that animates everything, from the plant straining towards the sun, to the predator hunting its prey, to you, yes, you, desperately seeking connection. Man can do what he wills, Schopenhauer wrote, but he cannot will what he wills. Think about that. Your desires, your passions, the very things you believe define your individuality are, in his view, often just the clever machinations of this overarching will, compelling you to serve its primary purpose, the continuation of the species. Love, in this bleak landscape, isn't the ethereal connection poets rhapsodize about. Oh no. For Schopenhauer, romantic love, that intoxicating, all-consuming fire, is the will's most cunning disguise. It's a biological trap, baited with the illusion of personal happiness, designed solely to ensure procreation. When a man is in love, he observed, he is no longer himself, he is merely the tool of the species. The intensity of attraction, the feeling that this one person holds the key to your fulfillment, that, according to Schopenhauer, is the will whispering its deceptions, ensuring the best possible genetic match, not for your happiness, but for the continuation of its own relentless cycle. This isn't to say affection or companionship don't exist, but the blinding force of passionate love, that, he argues, serves a purpose far removed from your individual contentment. And it is this fundamental misdirection, this cosmic bait and switch, that lays the groundwork for so much of our suffering in matters of the heart. So, where does this excruciating pain, this recurring heartbreak, actually begin? It begins in the chasm between expectation and reality. The will, in its ingenious cruelty, paints a masterpiece of illusion. It dangles the promise of ultimate fulfillment through another, a soulmate, a missing piece. We are wired to believe that in finding the one, we will find lasting peace, an end to loneliness, a perfect harmony. And for a fleeting moment, it can feel true. The initial intoxication, the shared glances, the feeling of being truly seen. But the will, Schopenhauer reminds us, is indifferent to individual happiness once its primary aim, the potential for procreation, or at least the intense drive towards it, is secured. The very qualities that drew you in, that seemed so unique and perfectly complementary, often become the sources of friction and despair. Think of the passion that becomes possessiveness, the quirks once charming now grating, the intense connection that fades into a hollow echo. All love, however ethereally it may bear itself, Schopenhauer stated, is rooted in the sexual impulse alone. A harsh pronouncement, perhaps, but one that seeks to strip away the romantic veneer. The pain isn't just the absence of that initial euphoria. It's the crushing weight of disillusionment, It's the realization that the person you thought would save you is just another struggling individual, as flawed and as driven by their own unconscious compulsions as you are. It's the gnawing feeling of being used by a force larger than yourself, for a purpose that discards your personal well-being like an empty husk. Consider the relationships that end, leaving you feeling not just sad but utterly depleted, as if a part of your very essence has been siphoned off. That, in Schopenhauer's world, is the will having had its way, moving on, leaving you to grapple with the wreckage of its promises. You weren't seeking a partner for life, you were a pawn in a biological imperative, and the game, for now, is over. The agony is the sound of that truth breaking through the carefully constructed fantasy. The illusion, the grand deception that keeps you shackled to this wheel of suffering, is the belief in uniquely personal, destined love. Society, from saccharine pop songs to Hollywood endings, conspires to reinforce this myth. It whispers that your aching void is a sign you haven't found the right person yet. It sells you the fantasy of completion through another, a happily ever after, that conveniently ignores the divorce rates, the silent miseries behind closed doors, the quiet desperation of countless hearts. What they don't want you to understand, what Schopenhauer ripped the veil from, is that this destined love is often the will's most effective camouflage. The intensity of your feelings, the conviction that this is different, this is real, it's the biological imperative at its most persuasive. It's nature's anesthetic, numbing you to the reality that you are being guided, not by your soul, but by an unconscious drive to create the next generation, or at least to play out the drama that could lead to it. The chemistry you feel. Schopenhauer would argue it's often the subconscious calculation of complementary traits that might produce healthy offspring, however little that aligns with your conscious desires for companionship or intellectual connection. You are told to follow your heart, but what if your heart is a compromised narrator, a puppet dancing to the strings of the species? This illusion is so potent because it speaks to our deepest vanity, the idea that our love is special, transcendent, an exception to the mundane rules of biology. We cling to the idea that our suffering in love is a noble tragedy, rather than the predictable outcome of a rigged game. The society that peddles these romantic ideals doesn't want you to see love as a biological function, because a population disillusioned with its most potent driving force might become unmanageable, content, or perhaps simply less inclined to consume the endless products designed to soothe the heartaches it perpetuates. The truth is, you are not failing at love. You are succeeding perfectly at fulfilling a biological script you never auditioned for, and the pain is the applause of a cruel, indifferent universe. Let's cut through the noise, the sentimentality, the comforting lies. The philosophical truth, as Schopenhauer lays it bare, is that suffering is not an aberration in life. It is its very essence, and love, especially passionate, romantic love, is one of its most effective delivery systems. Life is a business that does not cover the costs, he famously quipped. And in the business of love, the emotional expenditure almost always outweighs the lasting profit of happiness. The raw truth is this: the intense attraction that ignites what we call falling in love is, for Schopenhauer, the genius of the species at work. It's not about you, it's about the theoretical child that could result from your union. The will to live, in its blind, relentless pursuit of perpetuation, orchestrates these attractions with a chilling precision, ensuring the continuation of life, often at the direct expense of the individuals involved. The happiness of the individual is subordinated to the welfare of the species, he asserts. You might believe you are choosing a partner based on shared interests, kindness, or intellectual compatibility. Schopenhauer would argue that these are secondary considerations, rationalizations, for a far more primal, unconscious selection process. Consider this: why do we often find ourselves drawn to people who are, objectively, not good for us? Why do we repeat patterns, choosing partners who echo past pains? Schopenhauer's lens suggests that these are not simply psychological quirks. They are the will, indifferent to your personal history of suffering, identifying traits that, on some deep instinctual level, it deems necessary for its purpose. The spark, the chemistry, these are the will's siren song, luring you towards a union that serves its ends, not necessarily yours. The subsequent disillusionment, the pain, the heartbreak, These are the inevitable consequences of mistaking a biological imperative for a guarantee of personal, lasting happiness. The truth isn't pretty, it isn't romantic, but it is, in its starkness, potentially liberating, because only by seeing the bars of the cage can one even begin to contemplate a life beyond them. When this Schopenhauerian truth begins to seep into your consciousness, the first reaction is rarely relief. It is more often a profound and terrifying internal conflict. Everything you've been taught, everything you've yearned for, is suddenly cast in a harsh, unflattering light. The cherished memories of past loves, the hopeful anticipation of future ones, they become tinged with a chilling sense of manipulation, of a cosmic joke played at your expense. A voice screams in protest, "No, my love was real, my feelings are genuine." And they are genuine in their intensity. Schopenhauer never denied the power of these emotions. He simply recontextualized their origin and purpose. This is the battle, your deeply ingrained romanticism, your human need for meaning and specialness, versus this stark, seemingly nihilistic worldview. You may feel anger at Schopenhauer, at the universe, at the partners who failed you, and ultimately at yourself for being so easily duped. Despair can follow, a sense that if love is merely a biological trick, then what is the point of anything? The warmth of human connection can feel like a cruel mirage in a desolate wasteland. This is the crucible. This is where the pain of past heartbreaks meets the intellectual agony of a disquieting truth. You stand at a precipice, looking down into an abyss of meaninglessness. But it is precisely in this confrontation, in this willingness to sit with the profound discomfort, that the seeds of transformation can be sown. The old narratives begin to crumble. The frantic chase for external validation through another's affection starts to lose its desperate urgency. It's a painful stripping away, a shedding of comforting illusions. You might feel lost, adrift, but for the first time, you might also be seeing the landscape for what it truly is, without the distorting lens of romantic delusion. This internal war is not a sign of defeat, but the agonizing birth pangs of a new, more sober, and perhaps a more resilient understanding of your place in the world and the nature of your own heart. If Schopenhauer's vision of love as the will's deception seems like a sentence to perpetual misery, hold that thought, because within this bleak diagnosis lies a hidden, challenging path to a different kind of freedom. The reconstruction doesn't begin with finding a better love, but with fundamentally altering your relationship to love and to your own desires. How can this philosophy liberate? Firstly, by depersonalizing the pain. If heartbreak is in part the fallout of a biological imperative indifferent to your happiness, then you are not a unique failure. You are experiencing a universal human vulnerability. This realization can lift an immense burden of shame and self-blame. Secondly, it invites a radical honesty. By acknowledging the potential for the will's influence, you can approach relationships with a newfound caution, a more discerning eye. You can begin to differentiate between the intoxicating rush of infatuation, the will's siren call, and the quieter, more sustainable currents of genuine companionship, intellectual connection, and compassionate care. Schopenhauer himself saw art, asceticism, and compassion as potential, albeit difficult, antidotes to the relentless striving of the will. In the context of love, this might translate to cultivating relationships based less on fiery passion and more on shared values, mutual respect, and a sober understanding of human imperfection. It means finding fulfillment within yourself first, rather than seeking it as a missing piece in another. It means recognizing the beauty in platonic connections, in friendships, in a broader empathy for the suffering of others, which, according to Schopenhauer, is a way to momentarily silence the egoistic clamor of the will. This isn't about renouncing love entirely, unless that is your chosen path. It's about engaging with it with open eyes, aware of its potential pitfalls and its deeper, often unconscious, drivers. It's about choosing to love if you do, not as a desperate grasp for salvation, but as a conscious act of connection with another fallible, striving being. The pain may still come. Life, after all, is suffering. But it will no longer be the bewildered anguish of a puppet. It will be the acknowledged pain of a conscious being navigating a complex reality. And in that awareness, there is a profound, albeit somber, strength. So, the cycle continues. The will whispers its ancient promises, and a new generation with stars in their eyes steps onto the same well-worn stage. Schopenhauer's words echo across the centuries, a stark reminder that the human heart, for all its poetic aspirations, is tethered to a force far older and more indifferent than our romantic sensibilities would like to believe. You came here, perhaps, seeking an escape from the pain of love, an answer to why it cuts so deep. What you found is a mirror, reflecting not just your own sorrow, but the inherent tragedy woven into the fabric of existence itself. To understand Schopenhauer is not to be cured of love. It is to be armed against the tyranny of illusion, armed against the false promise that another soul can complete you, armed against the crushing weight of believing your heartbreak is a personal failing rather than a symptom of the human condition. The pain doesn't magically vanish, but its nature, its meaning can be transformed. It shifts from a bewildering, isolating agony to a shared, understood burden. Will you repeat the cycle? Perhaps. The pull of the will is strong, its disguises ever more ingenious, but now you carry a flicker of grim understanding. You know the script, you recognize the stage manager, and in that recognition lies a sliver of power, a choice, however constrained. You can choose to engage with eyes wide open, to seek connections that nourish rather than consume, to find solace not in the fleeting inferno of passion alone, but in the quiet embers of compassion, art, and the courageous acceptance of life's inherent suffering. The question that remains haunting the silence after the storm is not whether love will bring you pain, but what you will do with that pain. Will you let it crush you, trapping you in an endless loop of disillusionment, or will you allow it to carve you into something more profound, more aware, more resilient, a being who, knowing the bleakness of the game, still chooses to play its hand with a fierce and quiet dignity? The unexamined love is a path to certain sorrow. The examined love, well, that path is yours to forge in the shadowed twilight of awareness. What illusion will you choose to dismantle next? If this video touched something within you, challenged your perspective, or resonated with your own journey through the labyrinth of love, let your presence be known. Leave a like, subscribe for more journeys into the shadows of thought. Share this with someone who might be wrestling with these same ancient questions today. And in the comments below, tell us what truth, however uncomfortable, resonated most deeply with you. We see you. We hear you. Until the next descent.